we've got a good hour and a half, plenty of time, at least through 5 o'clock, to be able to have conversation. So I want everyone to be reassured that we should have an opportunity to be able to give just about everyone who wants to comment an opportunity to comment. And at Chatham House, we try to encourage free and frank debate, but we like to do it in a way that everyone gets a chance to say what they want to say and to hear what other people have to say in reply. So please bear with me as I moderate this session. I'll get to you as and when I can. I will try to recognize you when I've seen you. But let's just try and, as I said, make sure that we make this as constructive an afternoon as possible. We want to hear from you in the room, but we're also streaming this live. We have a few questions that have come in already online, so I'll be putting those questions as well through both to our ministers here and to Tim Hitchens and to the minister as the day goes on, and want to make sure that we get some of those viewpoints on the table. I thought what we do first of all is give an opportunity maybe just for Minister Henry Bellingham, you want to say maybe just a quick word of introduction, and then I'm going to turn over to Tim Hitchens to report from this morning's previous consultation we've had. Henry Bellingham.
Well, thank you, Robin. I'm going to be brief, but as the Foreign Secretary pointed out, not only is it the right time for Britain to be involved, but it's also the right time anyway for us to take this really important initiative. I must say, Robin, I've been staggered by the amount of support we've received from the international community. When the Prime Minister announced we were going to have this conference, of course we were optimistic that we would have the support of our European partners, of countries like America, the regional countries, but I've been absolutely staggered at how incredibly supportive they have been, and also the support of people like Ban Ki-moon and the AU, the EU, and that I think is incredibly encouraging, and also the interest among the diaspora. This is, I think, the fourth or fifth event I've done with different diaspora groups, and I'd like to thank you for your engagement and also for your support. There are many areas that we need to discuss. And I just wanted to really underpin something that the Foreign Secretary said a moment ago. We're not trying to set up a parallel process, because the Djibouti process obviously is the overarching framework. But what we want to do is we want to enrich the existing process, and we want to act as a catalyst to more coordinated, more imaginative, and more determined international action. And I won't repeat what we are hoping to achieve at the conference, but I just wanted to underline really 3 points. First of all, it must be the Somali people themselves who are really in the driving seat. I want to discuss this afternoon with you the political process. I think there's very significant consensus around a constituent assembly, but I'd like to hear from you how you feel this should move forward and the role it will play in the Constitution, the stage at which it becomes an elected parliament maybe, exactly what's going to replace the TFG, all of those points. But the key people, I think that in the case of Britain, we can facilitate, we can cajole, we can advise, but it's got to be Somali-led. But with the support, obviously, of the international community. And when the international community is more engaged and focused, then hopefully that they will be far more constructive in that approach. But it must be bottom-up as well. And one of the things that struck me talking to talking to regional countries, going to parts of Somalia as well, going to, as I did last summer, I have the privilege of going to Hargeisa in Somaliland, and of course, we've made it very clear that we want President Solano at the conference. And we want him to attend without any prejudice to his aspirations and ambitions, because I think he can tell people exactly what he has achieved and play a constructive role in what's going on in Somalia to the south. So it must be bottom up. And I've been impressed by those areas that have become relatively stable quite recently. And the yearning, the desire of those people in places like Galmudug, the areas that are now controlled by ASWJ, some of the reports we're hearing from the south of the country, where people are yearning to become involved, yearning to be included in the future. And I think that actually bodes really well. And so, as the Foreign Secretary also said, this isn't just a one-off. It's not Britain doing this on some egotistical drive for our own purposes. We're doing this because we really believe that we can make a difference. We also are doing it because it's not just going to be a one-off. We want this to trigger a much more dynamic international approach. And also, we want it to reactivate a number of work streams in all of these very important areas. And one of the failings, I think, of the international contact group process, and I've been to a number of international contact groups, and it's a great talking place, and Tim has been as well on a number of occasions, but they talk a great deal, and a lot of really constructive matters are agreed, but there aren't the working parties to carry the work forward in a really professional and determined way. And so we want to try and change all of that. But my final point is that we can do so much, but I think where Britain really does have the edge over other countries, we have a very large Somalia diaspora. You're a very important part of Britain. Some of you have achieved great things in Britain, but I also detect in many of you a yearning and a desire to play a part in rebuilding your country as well. And so working together, I think we can achieve so much more. And I think that's really why this afternoon we want to hear your views. Yes, Tim and I will do our best to answer your questions, but we want really constructive, positive engagement from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. Let me turn now to Tim Hitchens, Head of Africa at the Foreign Office, who's going to just give us a run through a little bit on some of the key points that were raised earlier today. Tim.
Thank you very much, Robin. We this morning had a group of maybe 20 Somali diaspora colleagues who were with us here in Chatham House, and the discussion we had there was under the Chatham House rule, so I won't attribute any of these comments to those who made them, but just to give you a flavour of the conversations we had. We divided our time up into a discussion of the political process, secondly a discussion of the security environment inside Somalia, and thirdly a question of the emerging regions and their relationship with the centre. On the political process, we had some very specific questions that we started out looking at. First of all, we know that there is now the Garowe Agreement. There's another discussion next week happening in Puntland that's called Garowe 2, and this sets out the creation of a constituent assembly in the course of the next few months, which will prepare the way for what comes after the current government. So we looked at the question of how that constituent assembly can be truly broad-based and reflect the interests of all of Somalia. We then looked at the question of how that constituent assembly, which is essentially a form of democratic representation, will create a new executive. We knew that the current executive comes to an end on the 21st of August, but what comes, how do we jump from the parliamentary to the executive? We third looked at the question of the role of Al-Shabab and those flying below the colours of Al-Shabab, whether there was a way in which they could be brought into the political process. And fourth, we looked at the ways in which the international community could support that process of political development without dictating it. And it was very clear from the Somali colleagues who were present that though they welcomed the international community's support and engagement, the decisions on each of those steps were for the Somalis themselves. As part of that discussion, there was a certain amount of questioning, what is Britain up to? What are we really doing? Surely you have a separate plan that you are hatching that you're going to announce in the course of the conference. And I hope we were able to reassure people that we're there to support existing processes, not to plan our own rival peace plan. And there was expression from one particular colleague welcoming the idea of a group of concerned countries forming a Friends of Somalia group that would help the Somalis and the United Nations as they take the peace process forward. So that was the first discussion on political process. We then looked at the question of security. One of us said that however good the political process is, it means nothing if there is no secure space to have that political discussion. But we also agreed that you can't have a military security answer to the problems of Somalia. It needs to be in the context of a political process. So the two absolutely have to run hand in hand. And there was some suggestion that in some ways there have been better security advances in Somalia than there have yet been political advances. We looked at 4 particular areas of security in the country. First of all, the African troops, AMISOM, who we've discussed, and the fact that in the United Nations Security Council over the next week or two, we will be looking to increase their number, to expand their mandate, and to put their funding on a sustainable basis. Secondly, and this was a point that came from a lot of the delegates or the discussants this morning, that there was a limit to what other African forces could do, and we also needed to look at developing Somali security forces. And in the long run, AMISOM was a short-term answer, but the mid and long-term answer had to come from the development of Somali forces. Thirdly, we agreed that even if you had fantastic security, if you didn't have a justice sector that functioned, security meant very little. So you needed courts that operated, you needed prisons that were decent and habitable. And fourthly, we looked at piracy. There was some useful comment from the Somalis in the group, which was saying that piracy isn't really something that bothers us very much. It bothers you overseas a great deal, but it doesn't really bother us that much. And I think that's a useful corrective for many of those in the international community for whom the entry point into Somalia is through piracy. So those were the conversations we had on security, and again, people were quite keen that we engaged with Al-Shabab in some form as part of a resolution of the security environment. And finally, we looked at the question of the regional authorities, the development of the regional authorities. It was clear that in the conference, many in the international community will be aiming to increase their support to the development of the regional authorities. Somaliland clearly has a special status, but to Puntland, to Gulmadug, to those areas, emerging areas under ASWJ and other control. And the issues we looked at were how we actually link our support for the regions with our support for the political process for the country as a whole. We don't want those to get out of sync. Secondly, what are the lessons we can learn for the rest of the country from what has happened in Somaliland and Puntland? And some argued that it was very obvious the successes of Somaliland and Puntland should be applied to the rest of the country. Others argued that actually the challenges in South Central were very much more complex than those in the rather more tribally straightforward areas in Somaliland and Puntland. And finally, we looked at what role the diaspora could play in supporting the development of the regions. One of our number, who I won't name, said, ignore the diaspora, only engage with them if they actually go home and engage with them on the ground. But there were others who felt that engaging with the diaspora overseas in the UK and the US was a valuable part of the conversation. Overall, I found it a really interesting discussion because it was very different from the discussions we will often have, the Minister and British officials will often have with the international community, and some of the assumptions we've made clearly aren't ones that we were right to have made, and therefore I hope this afternoon we can have a continuation of that kind of spirit of discussion. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much, Tim. One question that you mentioned there, Tim, what we want to do in a minute is get over to you and start to hear your thoughts and comments. And I think, just as the Foreign Secretary said, as the Minister has noted, and Tim as well, this isn't a Q&A. This isn't a panel up here to answer all your questions. I'm sure they'll answer questions you throw to them. But really, actually, this is partly a listening exercise. As we call this is a consultation exercise that we're engaging in. And therefore, we're going to want to be able to get ideas from you, not simply complaints or questions. And if I can just make one point, because I've had one question in on online here from somebody who's watching this as we're having this conversation, and I want to just put this point to either of you, because I think good to get this out of the way at the beginning, and Tim did reference this, why is the UK involved? And this question did come up earlier this morning. Some of the assumptions that take place outside, including the question that I received here, are that it's a little bit more commercial even, is there an oil interest? Is this reacting to the increasingly active role of countries such as Turkey in the region? And I think it's good to be able to, right at the beginning, kind of knock these points in whatever way you want to knock them. Henry, do you want to make a comment about that, or Tim?
I wouldn't really add much more to what the Foreign Secretary said, and that is that we actually feel that there is this alignment of different factors, that coming together we have a unique opportunity to really make a difference and to actually get the peace process moving in the right direction. And that is the absolute key priority. I mean, of course, one of the drivers would be the appalling famine that took place that shook the world and destroyed so many lives, and indeed there are still 2.5 million people who are at risk. Of course, there's been added interest from my parliamentary colleagues because of the strength of feelings among the diaspora in this country, and that's been very positive. And I think, again, there has been added interest because of the piracy and the threat to our maritime interests. But again, the piracy emanating from areas that are out of control is an appalling blight on the image of Somalia as well. And long term, I have such high hopes for Somalia, because I think that there are so many opportunities for business, for trade, for tourism, and yes, for mining interests as well. And if as a consequence of this, Britain is in front of other countries, well, I'll say that is absolutely fantastic, but we're a long way off from that yet.
And a question, Tim, for you may want to address this as well, but a second question that came in online is, and as you're organising this conference, I think you have a lot, well, between, in any case, down there, you're probably going to be at the front end of some of the operational parts. The role of women and how you're ensuring that there's proper representation there at the conference in that sense.
Can I just add one question to answer to what the Minister was saying? I think the other thing that's really striking is the new role of Turkey, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, which I think is not something that we have in the past paid enough attention to. And clearly over the last 12 months, the Turks, the Qataris and the UAE have been much more active and bring a different perspective. They have access to places that classic donors can't reach. And I think that therefore encouraging them to be part of the international community's action has been very interesting. There was a fascinating set of maps I saw. One was the map that Barbara Stocking from Oxfam had of the places that Oxfam could reach in Somalia, and it was everywhere apart from Shabab-controlled areas. And then I was in Doha the next week and saw the map of where the Qatar aid effort is concentrated, and it was the exact mirror image. And that seems to be an opportunity for cooperation and for reaching out to the whole of the country rather than a reason for strife. I think on the question of women, just to say that this is obviously, the conference itself is for representatives of government and representatives of the major organisations. So we are reaching out to them to decide who they send. But an important part of the way in which the Garowe process operates will be representing for one of the first times women in that constituent assembly, and I think that has to be welcomed.
Thank you very much. Right, let me open up. What I thought we'd do is try to organise the conference and the discussion here a little bit, because we could go off in all sorts of directions simultaneously. You heard the Foreign Secretary lay out some of the key topics, and Tim just report back on what we talked about. I'd like to start off with the discussion on the political transition side, because I think that has many dynamics. So if you have any points to make at the moment, could you please make sure they're on the political issue and the transition process, whether it's on the representative process, how to make sure the Constituent Assembly is sufficiently representative, the legitimacy and moral authority that was discussed about this morning. Ideas in this area would be particularly helpful. As I said, they don't have to be questions. there can be suggestions and ideas that we can be taking on board and thinking about for this conference. Gentleman in the second row first with the pink shirt, and I've seen a number of hands go up. I'll come to you all one by one. A microphone's coming. As we're on the record, you can let everyone know who you are, please. And
Thank you very much. I'm Eid Ali Ahmed from Wales, and I am a member of the Somaliland Society in Europe. I would like to, thank, the British government, this initiative, trying, to help Somalis suffering for a long time, 21 years. I think the other issue I like to highlight is, the way we see it. This process started from top down rather than, from bottom up. And in that regard, I can refer to Somaliland people or Somaliland government, the concerns they had when this came out. And I think there was a representation, to the British government and to the, the Minister of, Africa, Mr. Bellingham. And that process has taken a lot of effort within the diaspora, Somaliland diaspora, as well as Somaliland people back home. We would like to welcome, that concern that has been taken by the British government. We are very, very, thankful to that. And in fact, that created a new, atmosphere among the, the institutions of Somaliland, the parliament, the government, the opposition parties. And through this, it is, all agreed, that Somaliland to be represented at the highest level in this conference. But, with the proviso saying that Somaliland will have a special status, and that has been said also a little bit earlier. Therefore, what we like to know is what has been changed about, the initiative at the beginning with this new thing, because all Somalilanders, they are looking, that, their dream for the last 20 years will not be diluted and mingled with the complexity that's going on in Somalia. Thank you very much.
There's an important point here, and I've got lots of hands have gone up. I think I've got just about everyone here at the moment, and well, there's even more, but I've got lots of hands I'll go to. Can I just ask, did anyone want to comment on Somaliland in particular? I mean, that point was raised right at the end. Was that a key point, gentleman there at the hat on? Yes, please, sir. The microphone's coming. Is it okay?
I'm Ahmed Arwo. I'm presidential advisor to Somaliland President on economy. And what I will say is, I just emphasize what Eid said. Because we are coming here, Somaliland was invited as a separate, as independent state, and it will talk about the inspiration and the commitment of the Somalilanders, not the Somalia. But at the same time, we can contribute what the new ideas, how the Somalis can come together and have a peace and tranquility in their own state. So we have to distinguish between Somaliland as independent state and Somalia. And I think that distinction has been already made, but when you are talking about the regional diplomacy in the regions, you're talking about Puntland and Galmudug, rightly, and Somaliland as a separate independent state. What we need is, you're talking about the last 20 years, and the last 20 years, when you talk to the Somalilanders, is that the best 20 years they ever had. And if you are emphasizing the last 20 years, then we cannot do anything at all, because we had our dark days before that 20 years. So what I'm saying is, we as Somalilanders appreciate and we grateful to the British and the international community what they are doing to our brothers in Somalia. But they have to regard the distinction between the two, and they don't have to mingle, and we have looking forward to talk Somaliland as independent state, what is our inspiration, what's our vision, what we are looking for Somalilanders. Thank you very much.
Okay, if you just pass the microphone to the gentleman next to you, right, there we go, please. And then don't worry, I've got everyone's, we'll get to everyone. Just be patient.
Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Youssef. I'm chairman of Invicta Capital. I'd just like to to ask one question, or maybe perhaps two questions, but to preface it with an observation. The conference this month is remarkable for two reasons. Firstly, that it's organised by the British government. As the Minister will know, I've long argued that the British government has punched well below its weight as far as Africa and Somaliland is concerned, and the confidence with which the conference has been organised is a tribute to the government, and I'm sure that it will lead to more success than if it had been organised by other entities. The second thing which I'd like to observe is that this is the first time out of 15 or possibly 16 conferences that Somaliland has agreed to attend. That process has been mentioned, was not a simple process. It was the result of much consultation on the part of President Silanyo, not just with politicians, but with civil society, with the Saladins, with the parliament. And as a result of that process, two important things have developed. First of all, I think it showed the Somalilanders that they have more, the reason why they should have such confidence in their own democracy and in the development that they've managed to create for themselves in the last 21 years. I think we've not been very good at appreciating for our own benefit just how far we've come. And I think this process has reminded people of that point. The second thing which I think it showed is the depth and maturity and extent of the democratic process in Somaliland. And the question that I have for the Minister and for the Director is this. Firstly, what are the things, the issues that Somaliland can bring to the table to help the peace process in Mogadishu, as far as you see it? And secondly, and equally importantly, what can Somaliland benefit from participation in this process? Thank you.
Shall I answer that quickly?
Yeah, if you want to take that point quickly. Don't worry, I've got everyone's face, just have to be patient. I will get to you one by one.
I think, Mo, I'm very grateful to you, and I think that I would certainly agree with you. I think that the position taken by President Silanyo is a brave one. It's statesmanlike. And he, of course, he will be making a speech at some stage during the conference. And I think that the fact he's coming does, to some extent, reflect our narrative, because I've been saying, and the Foreign Secretary has been saying in Parliament, that we understand the aspirations of the Somalilanders, but it must be for people in Somalia and neighbouring countries to take the lead in terms of your campaign for independence. And I think that what has happened with the Anglo-Somali Land Trade Council, the Somaliland Development Corporation that we're going to be launching in 2 weeks' time, the fact that you're a model aid partner, I think all of those things stack up to what is a mature relationship. I think what are the issues that Somaliland can bring to the process? You can tell the rest of Somalia what you've done, what Somaliland has done in terms of bringing in capacity in government departments, delivering services, the sort of things we've been longing for the TFG to do in Mogadishu. Basic services like street cleaning, putting roofs on school buildings, things like that. And I think also, what can you do to further your campaign? Well, my advice is more of the same. The more you can engage in the immediate challenges of Somalia, I think the more respect you will earn in the international community. And after all, President Silanyo is going to be there with State Secretary Clinton, possibly President Sarkozy if he comes, the presidents, prime ministers in the region. And he'll be able to engage with them and talk to them and make his case.
Yeah, no. I think exactly the point I want to make now is that we are, as I said, we have these 4 subjects that we're running through, and I've got about 15 questions waiting here. I want to make sure that we touch that Somaliland thing at the beginning so that we've touched on it. I want to go to some other types of issues at the moment, all to do with the political transition, with the representative process, the Constituent Assembly. These are the topics I'd like now to move over, please. First gentleman here with the red tie, coming to you second, sir.
Thank you very much. I think at the outset, the conference should reiterate very strongly the international community's position on the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence on Somalia without any doubt. As someone who follows Somalia for a living, I know that the Somalia people, the region states, and the international community know the dangers which can come out of balkanizing Somalia. If I move on, I welcome the idea of the conference and putting the Somali people at the front seat. And I will urge the British government that Somalia is not an easy place, but take the risk with us. Be there through difficult times. And I think at least you have 3 years for this government. You can take 1 year risk. And if you fix Somalia, or at least do very good, the world will be grateful, and 250,000 Somali voters in marginal constituencies who never thought about conservatives before will be grateful as well. But specifically, the Constituency Assembly idea, I think the way that the international community are thinking about, and the way the Somalis, and in the Gero principle in particular, are thinking about, there is a difference between the two. And I think this has to be clarified. There are a lot of technical details which I wouldn't have time to discuss. And I think that putting the Somali people in the front seat will be very important in this issue. If I can give a specific idea about the diaspora. You talked about the diaspora and how can you use. I think there are a lot of capacities in the diaspora, particularly in the UK, for all over Somalia that really need. And one specific idea, I mean, which can come out of the conference, is establishing something which Britain did before, a know-how fund, which will be used for transferring capacities back into Somalia over long term. And Minister, you would like this idea specifically because it's what Margaret Thatcher did for Baltic states long time ago. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
I'll let you keep that idea for me. Let me get a few more points in for the table. People have been waiting very patiently. The lady here had a hand up right at the beginning. Then I'm going to the gentleman in the corner. I'll keep calling. Yep, but I had a lot of hands go at the beginning.
Thank you very much. I never thought that. I never thought that the British people or British government were waiting until Turkish to go to Somalia to do some help after 20 years. And I was trying to say is the political transition that you're doing it over there now. How is it going to help for the people who is under Al-Shabab right now?
Yep. So the key question, I think, and I know some people here might have some suggestions on this point, how will the political transition itself convince people not to be part of the Shabab? Yes, and that's why I heard your question be. Gentleman first, he had his first hand up right at the beginning. Gentleman here in the corner. Yep, I've got you, but sorry, you went first. Yep.
Hello, yes, please. My question is that political after...
You stand up, then everyone
yes,
can see you. Thank you.
Yes, please. It's two ways. It's a Gero signatories is a south of Somalia. So they have to decide which way they're taking up in front. Somaliland has to take the way forward, which is as independent as there was elections which has happened. They did a referendum. As Prime Minister David Cameron called for Scotland, the same way they have to have like referendum by the United Nations. Then that's the way I think it's forward. It's the same experience which is the Scotland.
Okay.
That I think it's political.
Thank you. Yeah, just put the, yep.
My name is Abdi Ibrahim Legei, and I am one of the Somalilanders. I came from all the region of Somaliland. Clearly, the problem of Somalia is tribalism. We are tribes striving. Everyone wants to grab the land of the other tribe, and everyone wants to advance. It is their tribe. Clearly, all the four gentlemen who were before me and who were talking about Somaliland are Somalilanders, but they are from one tribe, and I am from another tribe. Somaliland is relatively stable. It's my country. I have been there for the last year, before the last year and a half. I was teaching universities, both Hargeisa and Amud, as a law professor. International law, Somaliland is claiming independence because it's relatively stable. The last months, some of the tribes are at willingly killed in Somaliland. My tribe, 4 died last time, and when they were shot, then they were cut into pieces. And this is the first time that kind of a thing happened. If Britain, actually, as an Awdal people, we were the door that the British colonists came in. We were the only civilized area at that time. And now we are the victims. Here, we're sliding back. We had a legal agreement with Britain, which is still pending, and which Britain has real to honor. But I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about only one thing. Somali, all these diaspora people, every one of us will advance his own tribe or her own tribe. Okay. What I am saying is, I'm finalizing it. What I'm saying is, we have to look Somalia, the last 18 regions of the country. The country was divided into 18 regions. Every region must be autonomous from the other one, and every tribe must be really free from the other one.
I can see the Constituent Assembly is going to get very difficult under these circumstances.
Yes.
Okay, Okay. Please, shh. Again, I've got, just so you know, I have 16 names. I have 16 people I'm being calling on. As people know at Chatham House, I'm quite rigorous about getting to everyone, okay? And we have plenty of time. Please be patient. Just because you've caught my eye many times doesn't mean you were the first person to catch my eye. And I'm going to go by I've written them down. I've got little numbers under each person here, so just give me a chance to get there. Number 5 was the gentleman here. Microphone coming. I hope, if I can just say before you speak, I hope we can please stick to this issue. We're coming up in August to the end of the transitional federal government. We really need to think about how this process is going to be undertaken, how you're going to make sure that Constituent Assembly can be legitimate, how it can be effective. So I hope we can really address that issue right now. I think we've touched the Somaliland issue plenty so far. To you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. I will ask you only 3 questions. Grow agreement. It's only one-way direction. Means the same clan who was, because I came from interriver area.
Yes.
You know that.
Okay.
Means that all the interriver area was excluded this agreement. Mm-hmm. The same clan who was oppressed my people, and you give the veto vote to decide for me for my future. Do you think that it will get a peaceful Somalia? Number 2. Inter-river area was happened genocide. The war crime like Rwanda was taken in court. Then why in Somalia the international community do that justice? Then the Somali problem is not tribe problem, it's a cultural problem. Okay. Because we are agro-pastoral people and we are peaceful people. The other people, they're nomadic culture and they're violent. And that's why they are trying to occupy my land in the river area. And the solution is Somali is a Mai and the Mahatri. Means that the south already has historical kingdom, Galadi and the Gasaragude. And they were living peacefully before the invasion of Italian government. For this reason, to make solution in Somalia, we have to look historically. If you look at the history, you can get the solution in Somalia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Henry, did you want to come in at this point at all?
I just want to pick up on, I think the idea of a know-how fund is a really excellent one, and we'll pursue that. I think that the point about people under the Shabab, I think this is why it's so important that we have a political process that is more representative and inclusive, because people in those areas that have been freed of Shabab will be involved in the process, will be engaged. The people who are still under Shabab will say, well, why can't we have the same? So I think that that element of example and engagement is very important. And I think that we've also said that we want to include people in the whole process who have given up violence, who want to play their part in a future Somalia through a proper political process. And so, we don't exclude people who have in the past supported Shabab, of course not. And I think that's an important point to get across. I've learned a lot about the tribal challenges over the last few months, and I'm grateful to the last two speakers for elaborating still further. Tim, do you want to look at those? Yep.
Okay, gentleman's been waiting there with the red tie. Yep.
And my name is Abdulaziz Ali Ibrahim, known as Hildivan. I am a British Somali author and peace activist. Really, it is very, very hard to be optimistic. And what I know is that one of the few attempts that the international community has made, and as I was there back in Mogadishu, has failed. Are you ready, or are you prepared to fail again? You are doing your best, I know, but are you ready to fail? Because this is the views, and this is the ridiculous ideas, that we have in mind, saying, and this is me in that region, and this is me. We are divided, and we want to be united again. And the other thing that I would like to say is, I'm going to say something about the piracy. And now, I don't know how you get that information, but the piracy are now making their profits to invest in more sophisticated weaponry, making themselves even greater threat, not only for the Somali people, but you and not only for the Somali people, but the whole nation, and or otherwise international and internationally. So what I'm going to say is that the coming conference in 23rd of February, and the Somalis and the international community should agree that the pirates are criminals, of course, and the Somali pirates should be dealt like any other violent criminals who is responsible for criminals that for crimes should and those responsible for the crimes should be punished and stopped from committing any future acts on piracy. And my last point is that and as far as you know, we had as a Somalis an extremely brutal, ruthless, cruel, savage, remorseless, and ill-famed and notorious warlords. And now we have Al-Shabab and 550 and the so-called Somali parliament who wanted to hold Somalis as hostage. And what I'm saying is that this is the time that the government, the United Kingdom, or otherwise the international community, should look after us, as we need peace and stability back home. And the thing is that, one last thing, Al-Shabab is a threat not only for Somalis. There is many Somalis from America or otherwise, even going from Britain back to Somalia, and they will be coming back here, and London will not be safe. Not only London, the United Kingdom will not be safe. So you want us to save us, and you save your lives. Thank you.
Okay, can I just make a point here? As I said at the beginning, we're going to talk initially, if we can, please, about the political process. We have plenty of time. I'm setting lots of time aside to talk about the security, the piracy, the Al-Shabab side. But if we can try and do them in some organized, otherwise we're just going to get lots of different comments all coming randomly through the course of the afternoon. We will keep your points, sir, and we will address them in a minute. But I want to stay back, if I can right now, on the issue of the political transition. We have a very small window between now and August, yes? And some of the very interesting discussion I heard earlier this morning that Tim was part of as well, is how do you use this period? Is this Constituent Assembly simply going to be a rubber stamp? Is it going to have the time to be able to think through the transition to an executive branch that was discussed by the Foreign Secretary? Can we please focus on those issues for a while if I can? Please, exactly. Second gentleman here. No, then I'll come to you afterwards, sir. First in the front row, and then behind. First in the front row. Yeah. Yeah, and then to you, sir, second, yeah.
I would like to say thank you for British government to create this meeting today. And also, I have one question. First of all, I'm come from Somaliland, and also I'm helping, the very poor people from Somalia, especially people from South. They call Udubland State, because they didn't invite in this meeting 23, and also that people they fight in Al-Shabab, and also we receive a lot of phone calls. They say what's happening. The British government, they didn't even invite, they didn't even support, and they fight by almost since 2 years now.
Okay. Okay, point. Thank you. Can you pass the microphone to the gentleman behind you with the red tie? Thank you. Yep, I've got everyone's face. I've got you, sir. I've got you here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to stick the political process, and I would love to be very brief.
Okay.
Thank you for initiating this initiative, which has been very important to us, and we have a high expectation. But
keep the microphone close to your mouth.
Yes, but number one, there will never be a political process and reconciliation without admitting and acknowledging the actors, the forces that are the main actors in Somalia. That's Al-Shabab. Okay. That should be lifted, the section should be lifted. I have said it in America. I'm saying it. I don't know what the people are. Unless that has been lifted, and the government and international community openly get a courage, Somalia will be in danger. Secondly, Ethiopia and Kenya should not be involved in Somali political landscape. They are not a part of solution. They are a part of the problem.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. For the last 3 months, thousands and thousands of Somali died because of the bombardment of the Kenyans and maybe those who were helping. That's the second. Thirdly, if it seems it is true, international community agree not to renew or re-establish the federal institutions after the August, as you have said and the minister said, then there will be a vacuum. In that vacuum, there will never be a strong political structure that can be built in a time. Then the security structure, which it seems that the Kenyans and others and African forces are getting a momentum, will be the real authority in the country. That will create another very serious mistake. Britain, I will say one thing. This initiative is good. Britain must come forward. Britain never be always a free rider. Britain was a balancer and a power. Britain was one of the creators of international community, League of Nations as well as the United Nations. Britain is a leading member of the Security Council. This is a problem Britain left in Somalia. Britain must come up. We are not member of the Commonwealth, but all of us and many of us and millions are British people. For that reason, Britain must not make a mistake that it has done before. The community and the constituents and what you call the entities, which is written in all reports, is wrong. You have seen today what's going in Somaliland. Still, there will be a division everywhere. You have seen some people who say Somali have many languages. They don't understand the difference between the accent and the language. Difference between the dialect and the accent and the language. If we are here in Britain, well, when we are in North, well, sometimes it's difficult to understand the accent of a Liverpool or Newcastle. So that's it. Okay. That's my word. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep taking some comments in here. I'm trying to stick to I've heard a little bit. I think you made a couple of comments about the transitional process and getting to TFG. But again, the more input I could have on that would be helpful. The young gentleman here has been waiting for a long time. Then I'm coming to you, sir. Gentleman here. Then you're next, sir. Yeah, you're later, I'm afraid. Yeah.
My name is Mohammed Mahmoud, Director of Act for Somalia, an awareness creation organization. We're based in Bristol, United Kingdom. I got a few recommendations. I strongly support the idea of constituent assembly, but it must be based on merit. We don't want to see some sort of power-hungry parliamentarians of that kind of stuff. Young technocrat government, we want to see as well, not like the old politicians. Empowerment of Somali National Army, and they should be in common all the liberated areas from Al-Shabab. Do not encourage clan-based federalism. An international criminal court should be involved. That's all the recommendations I have.
That was a very clean intervention. Thank you very much. Let me just say, key points that you mentioned there, that though not have clan-based federalism, which obviously leaves open more regional or other forms of federalism, and I hope we'll come to that in a minute in the conversation. You said what you didn't want in terms of federalism. What are the types of federalism would be useful as well? Sir, you first, yeah. You've got the microphone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And my name is Musa Ali, and I'm from the South Somalia, not in the Somaliland. And you said, and the Secretary of State and the Minister also clearly explained that Somalia has been in trouble for 20 years and more. And those 20 years, many people and the international community were trying to do something with the problem. But there were some spoilers all the way along. Somaliland is one of them. And when the UK and the international community are standing here today and want to stand for Somalia, then Somaliland issues is on the table and discussing all the way and spamming on the internet and discussions. And that's no good, really, because Somalia have been starting civil war in 1988, and since then, and every time, some conferences, some peaceful reconciliation has been organizing, but every time something important were happening, like the Gulf War and the Bosnia War, and every time United Nations or the international community want to organize something for it, then something important were happening, and they were diverting attentions to somewhere else. Okay. And it took 20 years out, and now we are here. Now I have only one question, and that is, if something happened in the Middle East, like Syria or in the Iran, will the British government divert their attention from Somalia to the Middle East? That's one question.
I'll let Henry Bellingham come in. I have everyone down here.
I think on that last point, that there's obviously a horrendous crisis in Syria. We've been working tirelessly in the UN to try and get a resolution, which unfortunately the Chinese and Russians vetoed. We work tirelessly in other countries around the Arab Spring, but we still have time for Somalia, and I can assure you that our commitment will not be diminished by other distractions. Now, as far as the point you made about Somaliland independence is not on the agenda of this conference, and I think that I gave a very clear reply to Mohammed Yusuf about that. That's an aspiration. We respect that, but it must be pursued in other ways than this conference, because this conference is about what we can do to get the peace process in Somalia moving. And I just want to pick up on two other very quick points. I think the point about Al-Shabab is an important one, and I have already said that the process going forward must be inclusive, and that's why I think the Constituent Assembly, because it's hopefully going to be truly representative, but those people who have in the past supported Shabab, if they are prepared to play a constructive role in Somalia's future, a peaceful role, there must be a place for them as well. On the point about Kenya and Ethiopia, I think that the most important thing of all is that I do take on board your point that we want to see Somali forces and security forces and military forces in Somalia, and that means the TFG, it means TFG forces, TFG police, and obviously, they are already playing an important role. But as someone said earlier, to get to the political process, you have to create the space. And I hope very much that, what the Kenyans and Ethiopians have done, those areas will be backfilled, by, in the short term, TFG administrators and indeed TFG forces. I think that's incredibly important. And I think that both the Kenyans and Ethiopians made it clear that they're there only for the short term. And so I'd agree with you that their role on the ground militarily cannot be any part of the long-term or even medium-term solution.
Okay. Point quickly. Again, we're trying to stay still for a little bit longer on the political transition. I'm going to move to security in a second. Tim, if you want to come in at any point, please let me know. No. We haven't moved to security yet. Don't worry. No. I said I need a bit. I'm still hoping on the political transition. I'll give you more comments. First, I've gone away from this corner, and then I'm coming. I have a gentleman in that corner there. Let me just do 3 here, 2 there. Gentleman first with the black sweater, and then we'll go next to you. Yep. No. The folks had their hand up at the right time. Your hand definitely wasn't up first, sir. Yep.
Yes, my name is Mohammed Al-Hadi from Ashite Center for Research and Media Studies. I really welcome the British government initiative for holding this conference and also this meeting, which is paving the way for the future of the Somalia. One thing that I want to mention is most of the previous conferences and peace processes that were held for Somalis had one or many failure elements or failure ingredients. These, if are not tackled and dealt with, it is going to happen again, the failure and failure. One of these issues are adopting the clanship as a representative Somali people. 4.5 is one of the failure elements. People, clansmen, do not represent their clan or do not represent Somalia. All the people who also claim they represent clan, they do not represent the clan. Because people take by default that everyone who is from a certain clan represents that clan. And that's not true, because everyone is coming from his own activism. I know most of the people who are in the parliament now, they are not representing their clans. They did not come through a proper channel to represent their clans. So we should talk about clan in the level of social reconciliation, not in the level of political reconciliation. Okay. When we want to make the people represent Somalia, they should come through regional elections, then create regional assemblies. Then from there, we choose who represent that region in that assembly or that parliament. That's one point. The other point is, most of the international community, when they talk about the security, they talk about AMISOM. I'm empowering AMISOM. All the money is poured onto AMISOM. When you say we are helping Somalia, we're helping AMISOM, is different. So AMISOM, in the view of most of the Somali people, are not respected because they came with the Ethiopian occupation. And they are there as a continuation of that occupation. So we should see forward how to change or transform this AMISOM with different name and inject them with different forces. These are pure African Christians. We want different people from Turkey, from Arabs, from Muslim nations to come there to replace these people so they can be genuinely respected by the Somali people. Because Al-Shabab are using this as a tool of recruiting marginalized people from the community and saying, okay, this is the occupation, continuation of the occupation, and you should join us. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask, Tim, what do you think about this? I know we've drifted into security, but I'm just going to take this question for the moment because it's partly contextual. The idea of AMISOM being the right agent, if you see what I'm saying. I mean, is this a fair question to raise at this point?
I mean, it's an extremely fair question. I think if one is looking for the mid-term, long-term solution to security issues and, I guess, political issues in Somalia, there has to be an indigenous security presence. The international community tries to support this. So the British government with European colleagues trains TFG forces in Uganda before they're deployed. But there are some spectacular challenges. There are, for example, I think no barracks in Mogadishu for TFG forces. Among those who are called TFG forces, there are still many who are well beyond what in the UK would be regarded as the retirement age. So there's a need to make sure that the forces really are fighting forces. And I think one also has to work with what one has. I think it's certainly fair that over the last 12 months, it is the Ugandans and Burundians who have, with their own blood, created enough security and space in Mogadishu for some of this politics to start happening. So, though they aren't the long-term answer, they certainly are a very necessary part of the short-term response.
Thank you very much. I have a number of hands down here. Just so you know, I've got 20 people, okay, on the list still. We've already had about 12. So you just have to be patient. I'm getting to you all, and we have time to go, so don't worry. The gentleman's been waiting very patient at the end, and then the gentleman's been waiting very patient in the corner there. So at the end first. Yeah, then I'm coming to you, sir, in the corner with the glasses, and then I'm coming down to you.
Thank you. I just would like to say...
Introduce yourself quickly, that'd be great.
Okay, I will, Robin. I just would like to say, first of all, that the negative rhetoric that we are using towards each other is not very helpful. So we have to be harmonious. And let me say, those who aspire, even one Somalia like myself, should be proud about what Somaliland did for all of us. They did a great job, and we have to be grateful. Coming to the political process, Robin, I think the one thing which international community overlooked is the Somali public. They completely disillusioned and lost the trust of international community. They really completely lost the trust of international community. So in order to achieve a political, economic, and the security development, you have to take the people with you. And you have to go, you got a very, very monumental work to do in order to take the public, Somali public with you. In relation to the technical aspects of the political process and what kind of government that we would like to see after the TFG, I think the young man in the front did a great bullet points. I think we would like to see a civil service-driven government rather than, yes, the political solution is a very helpful, but we need administrative and institutions based from the bottom.
Thank you. I mean, as always, we have this problem where I think people want a technocratic government in some cases, you know, you're merit-based, civil service, etc. And yet we're still at the point where we haven't got to the authority to be able to appoint that type of a government. So again, I go back to the point of how we get to where we need to get to. First, the gentleman in the corner there, the glasses, and I'm coming to the lady here. You're next.
Thank you very much. I would like to say something about, our AMISOM is created to help the Somali people until the National Somali Force is ready. Therefore, AMISOM mandate cannot be placed forever. The question is there any plan for British government in establishing the Somali security sector? Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I was hoping to get to that in the next part on the security section, but I think that's a very good question. Let me keep that for the moment, and we'll come back to it. This professionalization of the Somali security sector. The lady's been waiting here patiently. Now I'll come back down to the group here. Yeah.
Thank you, Robin. I think the gentleman before me have already said the one I want to say, but I just want to comment one thing, because we need to understand who is the benefit for Somali to be the way it is. It's not obviously our benefit as we are Somalis, but there's a lot of other people, other countries are benefit, actually. And what I would suggest is, as a USA, just act as the god of this world today, and Britain are the soulmate. They could dismantle all the areas, and the people who have access to Al-Shabab and where they do get the supplies for the weapons and all that, they could dismantle. And the second thing is, I think that William Hague have mentioned that they just getting more funding to support the AMISOM. People believe AMISOM are fighting against Al-Shabab, but we believe Al-Shabab got only 2,000 militaries rather than less than the AMISOM is military, they've got more, but it's endless battle because they're there for work. They're earning more than the Somali forces, and I should suggest that Somali forces, the national forces, should empower and then to employ them because they're really having a difficult to fight alongside with the AMISOM as well. And they're not even doing any good for the Somali society, especially the female in Mogadishu. And the second thing I want to suggest is negotiating with Al-Shabab. I don't think it would do any benefit because if we just start negotiation with Al-Shabab, we just make them involved with the politics. We will get another rebellions who want to be part of the politician. So we should reconsider talking about negotiation with Al-Shabaab. It wouldn't benefit for the Somalis.
Won't be a benefit. Well, interesting points, and I think there's a question that just came in here from one of the people watching us from outside the room. A question on parallels between Afghanistan and Somalia. Will the approach to Somalia end up being the same as the West's approach to Afghanistan? The Taliban is Al-Shabaab, the TFG is Karzai's government, and AMISOM is NATO. So, you know, there are elements of skepticism inevitably out there that we're getting from questions from outside. I said I would go down to the front here. Yes, sorry. Actually, the person that was number 7 on my list. The gentleman here first, then I'm coming to the corner here. No, just here. Yep. Then I'm coming. I've got you, sir.
First of all, I would like to thank the British government for initiating this conference. And I hope you are not cut and run when the goings get tough, like Americans did. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I would like to say one point to my friends from Somalia who were portraying Somaliland as a heaven, democratic heaven. But this moment you are speaking, Somaliland killing machines are in Buhodle town. This is the 3rd time this year they have attacked in that area, and over 60 civilians lost their lives. In that area, I think Sol Sanag and in regions of Somalia are bridge between Puntland and Somaliland. It's bridge between Somalia and Somaliland, and therefore it is important that people to live in peace and that area to be kept in peace in any future reintegration of Somalia. Okay. That's one point. The other thing is, I'm asking the minister, can you at your capacity convince Somaliland to pull out its troops from that area so that people can decide their fate. They have their fundamental rights, the right to self-determination. They don't want to be part of Somaliland. They want to be part of bigger Somalia. And it's the best interest of all interested parties, Somalia to be united and to be one Somalia country. As for representation or constituent representative, I'm thinking it would be a good idea where there is an administration, they have to select their own representatives. Where there is no administration, it has to go down at this moment to the traditional leaders and elders to select those who are supposed to represent the forthcoming Constituent Assembly. Thank you very much.
Not selecting themselves, but selecting others, you mean?
Sure, yeah, that's what I meant.
I think this point came up in some of the earlier discussion. Please, And then I'm going to do the row that I feels been abandoned, which is the row at the back of the middle, exactly. I've done the back of the room, but I've done the middle. Yeah.
Let me start with there is a great expectation from London conference, and I may say it's mixed expectation. Some people are fear about the London conference, the outcome, due to the circulation of some documents, so-called non-papers by Italian government and UK government. The minister should address in his position on that issue. It's very interesting, really, and helpful. The second one is what we need in terms of political process and in relation to the Constituent Assembly. Actually, we cannot avoid having another transition, but this time we need responsible transition. When I say responsible transition, I mean more accountability to the Somali leaders, and also to address the issue of impunity, because there's spoilers inside Somali political process who want to hijack all the time political process, unless there is impunity to deal with, as long as we don't have a local justice system in our country to deal with that issue. So we need international community should address the impunity issue in this, should be addressed in this conference. In terms of Shabab, I think there's many elements, and young fighters of Al-Shabab, I believe that most of them are driven by greed rather than ideology. So we need the policy of integration with those young fighters which are, which might I say, driven by greed, and reconciliation with more senior who want to denounce violence and to join political process. In terms of selection, we have the roadmap and the Garwan principle, and I agree it is some sort of a good start. But as always said, it is like a map without road. So to fix the road here is very important in terms of selection of the Constituent Assembly. We need to give power back to the Somali community throughout traditional leaders, who now the only authority existing on earth can represent the Somalis. And I advise my Somali colleague here, let us, I support the young man from backyard there, and forget about the internal fighting and put your thoughts into the British government. The senior ministers are here and they want to take your account into your advice. So please be attention and pay attention to that good opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gentleman there with the red tie, I'm moving across the back there. Lady there, yeah. Okay.
For a long time. Thank you. My name is Zakaria.
Microphone back, please.
I would like to advise the British government for several points. I can see here some contrasting and conflicting approaches. One is that the main objective of the conference, and this has been written and said by the British government several times, is that to fundraise for foreign forces, invasion of the Ethiopian and Kenyan troops into Somalia. And I've said this to the Minister Bellingham when I was with him in his office 2 minutes ago, if you remember, Minister.
I do.
Invasion of the Ethiopian and Kenyan forces and killing Somalis by great numbers. Sometimes what they have killed, the Shababis and AMISOM combined have not killed. I mean, 10 villages and 10 cities have been bombarded by the Kenyans without impunity and killing every day women, unless you have smart bombs that kills only the Shababs. I know smart bombs and smart cards and all this. So it's a counterproductive. You are strengthening indirectly to the Shababs. Now they have recruiting a lot of Somalis, and everybody knows this. This young man is our boys. I think they can be rehabilitated once you have a credible government of Somalia. The Islamists have tried 1991, 92, 93 to overrun, and only clans have defeated them. We can take care about your concerns, about piracy, about Shabab, about extremism. The only thing we need is a fair government and fair selection, not hand-picked people. For example, in your pace, the benchmark of your approach is a known failed process, and that is Djibouti. I have refused Djibouti when I was in Asmara, and I knew that this problem will arise. Now, Mr. William Hague was saying that it has to be on the basis of Djibouti. Djibouti is failed. You should not base your initiatives on already failed process. The last thing I want to say to the Somalis, whatever grievances we have, only Somali government can fix it. We should not say it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The lady first and then the gentleman. First, the lady first and the man next to you. Yep, there we go. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fatima Osman Ahmed, and I would like to talk about, or maybe my question is to Henry Bellingham, who said that Somaliland agenda is not on, Somaliland issue is not on the agenda. It is an issue for the Somalis. Somalia is divided into three parts: South Somalia, middle regions of Somalia, and north of Somalia. Somaliland has been occupying the regions of Sol and Sanag and Ain, which are part of Somaliland. And also 70% of your funding actually goes to Somaliland. And it means that it has not, all these funds have not been monitored. And as my previous colleague also mentioned, there are daily violations on human rights, and people have been killed. Nearly 40 or 30% of Dadaab people actually flee from Sol and Sanag and Ain regions. Many injured people in the past 2 months, they have been taken to Galkayo and Garowe hospitals, and that's an issue. And Somaliland issue is they have to come on the table and not around the table all the time. They have to discuss about these issues if they want to join the rest of Somalia.
Thank you. Could you pass the microphone to the gentleman on your right?
Pick up on
Yeah, let me just let the Minister answer that particular thing as was raised to him, then you, sir.
Yes, I just want to pick up on one or two of the points that have been made in the last quarter of an hour very quickly. Negotiating with Al-Shabab, it's not on the agenda, but as I said, we must make sure that those people who have given up on Shabab, but who might have supported them in the past, do feel that they have a place in the future. I think on the point about Sul and Sanag, of course we're worried about what's happening there, and we urge both sides to find a way forward that is peaceful and that can be negotiated, because obviously we deplore any extra sort of dimension, any other big distraction that's taking place such as this. And I think on the point about UK aid, yes, we have been putting a lot of aid into Somaliland because we've had access. That's the key to it. As the Foreign Secretary said, our colleague Andrew Mitchell, the DFID Secretary, went to Puntland last weekend. He went to Garaway. We're putting money into a new fish market in Garaway. Where we can get access, we're putting money in. So in terms of direct aid, then of course there's more going to Somaliland than elsewhere. But we're now increasing our aid elsewhere into Mogadishu. And of course, aid to Somalia as a whole, as much goes elsewhere than it does to Somaliland, because the aid to the other areas goes in through bilateral agencies, through international NGOs, for example, the Islamic Development Bank, that has access to parts of South and Central. So, where we have access, we go in ourselves. Where we don't, obviously, we have to do it through third parties. And I think on the point about the Kenyan and Ethiopian forces, don't for one moment believe that we're sort of hand in hand with this. We were not informed about what they were doing, but of course we are where we are, and we hope very much that there will be a backfilling of those forces by TFG forces as they are at the moment, and that there will be arrangements made for the people in those areas to play a part in the new Constituent Assembly. So, both those countries, we have spoken to them, and they've made it clear that their plans and aspirations are very much short-term.
Can I just stay on this point before I go to our next person, just on two of the points that have been raised here, and maybe this unfair parallel with Afghanistan. But the interesting thing about the Taliban is there's a leadership, 2 or 3 leaders, but there's a leadership that is there to be negotiated with potentially. We have an office opening up in Doha. What is who is one negotiating with, I suppose? It's one thing people who want to put down weapons. That's more a case of integration than negotiation. So what is there leadership? What stage are we at in this process of being able to negotiate or not with Al-Shabab as a group? And again, the point interesting about the Taliban, they're able to get a lot of their supply from Pakistan. There's a neighboring state. The lady mentioned a very important point. Where are these weapons coming from? Where is the support coming from? Where's the funding coming from? And what can one do about that? Is there something that is going to be addressed in the conference on either of these 2 points, to you or to Tim?
Yes, I think on the point about the Shabab leadership, you have a major split going on between Robo and Godone at the moment. But when you analyse the fighting force of Shabab, you're only talking about maybe a couple of thousand or so operatives, but you're talking obviously about a significant number of members of the public in those areas who have been involved maybe in helping with administration, involved in some of the structures that they've set up. But those are the people I think we can convince that there is a way forward that doesn't include Shabab. And so inspiring them, giving them hope, I think is very important. I think on the point about weapons and their supplies, yes, we do know of routes and supplies that have come into them. We also know that they have ways of that they're getting money from Kismayo, from the port. That they charge access to NGOs. There are some remittances, I guess, that go to them. There are some international jihadists who've gone there to fight. They probably come with money and support. But my own impression is that what's happened on Shabab's watch has been appalling. Really horrendous famine and tragedy has happened on their watch, and we cannot be complacent because just as these people are knocked down, they have a habit of rising up and biting you. But I do think that there is an opportunity to inspire all but the most extreme elements of Shabab, that there is a peaceful way forward that really can give people hope. Jim, do you want to add to that?
No, just to say that there's a clear distinction between the foreign fighters and Somali patriots. And they often fly, they operate under the same flag, but they're very different kinds of people.
Point taken. Right, gentleman's got the microphone, then I'm coming down to the gentleman here at the front, and then I'm going to the person at the back. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Abdul Farah. I am a community worker in London.
One at a time, please. Thank you.
Let me start first by welcoming and commending the Foreign Secretary's decision to open an embassy in Mogadishu. And this is an act we welcome, and every Somali welcomes. Second, Somalia has been stateless in the past 20 odd years, yeah? And it's not the only country that is a failed state or where civil war is striken. The only reason that our situation prolonged is because Somalia had no friend, a dependable friend at the time when our state collapsed. And the hand-picked leaders by the American state had not given assurance that American interests will be protected. Now, we are where we are. Is the British government considering that the Somali diaspora, 80%, at least 80% of Somali diaspora live in a country where English is the first language, will act as a guarantor, as they did in the past, in Kenya, in Liberia, where civil war has happened? Would the British government is willing to guarantee or act as a guarantor for the Somali government to re-establish itself? Or, as the question raised on the internet, British is just there to fend off the Iranian and Turkish influence from the region? That's my question.
Thank you. Can you take the microphone down to the gentleman here, then I'm going here, then I'm going to the person right at the back, who is still there, I think, waiting by the TV camera. Thank you. One at a time.
My name is Mr. Abdul Abdi Mohammed, and I am from Mogadishu University Educational Trust here in UK. First of all, I would like to thank Henry Bellingham and Tim Hitchens and Mr. William. I think this conference is very important for the Somali people, and the Somali people today are at the crossroad. And I think this initiative should succeed, but it needs to also completely depart from all past conferences if it needs to succeed. The first condition for that, in my opinion, is in terms of the constituent representation, clan-based should not be the only criteria. I know it's not possible for Somalia to do an election today, but we need others to be included. And in this case, I will say at least 20 to 30% should be clan represented, 30% should be civil society represented, and at least 30% should be represented by organized Islamist movements that are well represented in Somalia across Somalia, which transcended clan ideology. And in terms of the approach, bottom up, I think, in my opinion, unfortunately, as a broad Somali, we are a failed society. And that reflected today how they divided. And the international community should take its responsibility to save this society. There is nothing, in my opinion today, there are no Somalis who are capable of reconstituting effective government. Unfortunately, also, the Ethiopians and the Kenyans also are playing very well in this division, and they are really exacerbating the situation. And I think it's the role of the international community, spearheaded by the United Kingdom, should be supported by Turkey and the Muslim world to reconstitute effective Somali government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gentleman here.
Just going to say something about
Turkey. Yeah, Tim, do you want to come in on this now? Yeah.
I mean, just to say, if I might pick up this question of working with Turkey and the Islamic world, I mean, it's very clear to us that they are absolutely part of the solution, and that they have access, they have political determination, they have the willingness to dedicate resource to the solution of Somalia. And it's really important that we, as it were, classic donors, classically involved in Somalia, recognise that they are absolutely part of the new picture. So the suggestion that somehow we're interested in order to fight off the Turks is absolutely wrong. I think it's wonderful. When we were in Mogadishu on Thursday, Turkish Airlines was on the tarmac, the only international airline I know of that flies in and out of Mogadishu, and that is good for all of our interests.
Be
Thank you.
next.
Now, I've got still 15 people at least on my list, and more hands going up as the time goes on. As much as I say that we should talk about this or about that, of course, you're going to talk about what you want to talk about. So I noticed that we've covered a little bit some of the political issues. Now, of course, if I ask you to talk more about the security issues, you'll probably talk more about the political ones, but never mind. What I would like to make sure we do is that we can, although some quite interesting points have been raised already on Al-Shabab in particular, we've made some interesting comments about the role of Somali military forces, police, needing greater capacity, and I'd like hopefully some comments on how that might be addressed, and then the piracy question, which is of course incredibly important in the security agenda. And if I can say one other point just for you to be thinking about, somebody made a very interesting point in the round table that was held earlier today that Tim reported on, just saying people think of the security dimension, apart from the human security, they also think of piracy and terrorism. What people have not thought about enough is the possible return of kind of political violence as conflicts perhaps are not fully resolved. And I think this is another dimension of security we need to come to. First you, sir, but I'm giving you full fair warning to other speakers as well. Please.
My name is Abdisaq Jama, Secretary Somalia Diaspora Association Galchuba, representing Galgudud, Gado, and partly Juba. I'm also chairman of Ikhra Somali Education Institution. Actually, what I would like to say is Britain and Western countries have the right to defend their interest, have the rights to defend their interest, but also they have an obligation. They have an obligation to look the interest of Somali people. And I think their approach must be a win-win situation, a win-win situation. So what I will say is actually it's the obligation of British government to safeguard Somali Sea, dumping a toxic waste. That is important issue, not just protecting vessels, but to be care of Somali coast as well. So what I also would like to say is international agencies and also bilateral aid is not a balanced and is unfair actually. What I will also recommend is to look into other provinces in South Somalia including Galgudud, Hiran, Gado, in order to provide their some help, because for the time being we are not getting from I will say so. For time being, national government is not doing anything, because national government, as you might know, is incompetent, selfish, and also a hypocrite as well. So it is a is obligation for international community to do some help those areas. What I would like last to say is actually it's very important in order to eradicate a piracy. We need to train a Somali army in order to tackle those piracies, because you can fight with them inside Somalia but not outside Somalia. Yeah. That is my point to you as well. What I finally will say is I think everyone knows 4.5 is a immoral and unfair. I will suggest actually that new members of parliament must be nominated by local people. Thank you very much.
Thank you for covering all those points. Gentlemen, by the way, I've spoken here to the Minister. We're going to run to about 5:15, 5:20, so we have plenty of time to get the questions that I've done to so far. Gentleman at the back's been waiting very patiently.
Hi, Omar Ahmed, Council of Somali Organisations. Firstly, just like everybody else, very much welcome the conference and the opportunity to make some comments today. If I can just come back to what we were supposed to have been discussing at the previous session, the issues around the transition. I think very clearly it's very, very important to ensure that whoever makes it from the current TFG into the new transitional group, that we use this process as a filter to filter out the war criminals, the butchers, and the people who have acted for decades with impunity. A strong element of the transitional arrangements has to be genuine recognition and respect for the rule of law, which has been utterly absent. I've not heard anybody mention that at all today. The rule of law has been absent from Somalia for well over 20 years. And I think it's very, very important also that we just bear in mind when we talk about Somalia having been in this mess for 2 decades, it's actually substantially longer than that. The genocide, and some of the things that you've heard people from Somaliland talking about today, has been real pain around a lack of recognition. I'm not talking political recognition here. As the Minister said, that will come at another time and possibly not out of this process. It's actually recognition of why Somaliland itself separated and the issues of genocide that are today unresolved. And the fact that people who were involved in that genocide are today involved in difficulties that are taking place in Somaliland and still inciting acts of genocide, I think really needs to be addressed by the international community. So people like General Morgan, when we're talking about looking at the security, revisiting the security and having a discussion around the security, and that we need the political space to have, we need the security to have the political space. I think you need, before we can have security and before we can have any meaningful political dialogue, there needs to be a level of accounting. There needs to be a level of honesty. And really my message and what I'd like to hear from the panel today is what steps will be taken arising from this conference going forward into August and post-August to ensure that people who have been involved and implicated in piracy, in terrorism, and in acts of genocide cannot go through and participate in the future political landscape. The issue, I think, has also been raised today about the weapons, the arms embargo. There has been long arms embargo on the region. Any of you can go on the internet and read the very detailed reports of the Security Council of which arms were sold to which group on which day and sold by whom. I think we need to take some responsibility to being a bit more serious about resolving the, stopping the flow of arms. Very, very finally, in addition to this issue of recognition of the rule of law issues, I think there has to be a real effort to, and I know this is on the agenda, to track down finances that have been stolen from that country, either by Somalis or non-Somalis. I think it's a long-term issue, and I think tracking those flows and making people accountable to them, for them, whether they're Somali or not, is a key imperative for the international community.
Thank you very much. And I want to come back on a couple of these points. I think the rule of law came up in the conversation earlier about the capacity to be able to tackle piracy. And so you haven't got judicial processes, jails, police. Without that infrastructure, you're doing ad hoc type of solutions. The lady's been waiting patiently in the corner here. And then I'm coming to the group here. And I'm coming back to the group there. Sorry, yep.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Agnes and I am from Kenya. I'm sorry. Just really want to clarify that...
Brave lady sitting on the side. We've got to stand up now.
Let me just clarify that Kenya has no political intention in Somalia. We went to Somalia and we called on everybody in the international community to come and help galvanize for a stable Somali. A stable Somali is beneficial to Kenya as it is beneficial to you people. And my call to you, the diaspora, Somali diaspora, is that you need to take...
Hold on.
You need to take your own initiative and resolve the crisis in Somalia. It's not Kenya, it's not Britain. It's you, the Somali people, that have the mandate and authority to resolve Somalia. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to come now to a gentleman there. Sorry, but madam, I'll come to you next. First, the man with his hand up, the brown jacket. Thank you.
Very, very good.
Then, I know. Yes, I've got you as well. I've got everyone. Everyone's putting their hands up at the end as well. I have you, sir. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this event, the British government. I'm very appreciative for this event, actually. My name is Mr. Hassan Ali Gray, the liaison officer of SWJ, so Somalia. We are very welcoming the British conference, and we have been invited. Yeah. Secondly, I want to say one thing with comment in Somalia. As we are Somalian, we have a different opinion and different problem. Actually, one thing I will say is, we want to issue to the British government to carry on, to be the part of Somalia, to be the Commonwealth, Somalia to be the part of Commonwealth. And then, we, as diaspora, will encourage the British government to carry on the engagement of Somali political. And it's very, very interesting to know the British are involving nowadays in Somali political after 2 decade years. Please, let us forget between us what's going on. Let us encourage to the British government and to be the part of the Commonwealth and us, the diaspora, to work with the British government in this. And secondly, let me come to my point is this, about the security issue. ASWJ Somalia, we work and we fought against those extremists who are not actually fair to Somalian people. But we don't have any support by the British government or other international community. We are very requesting to the British government to look back to Somalian people in the ground who are suffering. We fought those for our dignity, not to be satisfied to other people. For our life, to destroy those extremists in the region. If the British government will not support ASWJ and the Somali forces, those extremists will be back to British. And as you know, there's a young boys or young children who are recruiting those extremists in a wrong doctrine in hatred of Islamists that we'll see in British if not be supported. Thank you for this.
Thank you. There's a lady just in front of you. If you give the microphone just in front of you, sir. Just right in front of you. Thank you. No, right in front of the lady in front of you. Yeah, and I'll come back. Yeah. Microphone.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm saying thank you. Thank you for everybody that invited to us in here. The things I want to say, Somalia waiting for government for a long time, and we are suffering for all over the world. And still I have no result to come out in this way for saying that we are here, we are here, we are there all the time. As a woman, if I speak to, I wanted to say something. If everybody of gentlemen, that the leaders, they have to forgive them to others. Because if you are saying we are doing, I am victim in here, I am victim over there, that's not nice to say every time. We want the result to get as soon as possible to get Somalia, because we are suffering all over the world as a woman and children. And we wanted to fight the people who is always trying to destroy our society. We are not tolerating anymore. We are ready to get a government.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you give the microphone just behind you, sir. Sorry, you arrived a little later. Yep, just behind you. Thank you. Then I've got to come down here. Sorry, you arrived a little later with your question. Yep. Yes, microphone's on.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody.
It's getting late.
I join those who show support for the conference and for this event. I also welcome. Two questions which I will answer. And
I hope one of them is on security, I hope.
Why they have to do with security as well. Why some parts of Somalia are stable and some parts are troubled? For example, South Central. Because apart from our problems among Somalis, the stable parties, Somaliland and Puntland, have not been intervened by external forces. But in the south, from 1992 to date, there have been many interventions and many side takings by some countries of the conflict, taking sides of the conflict. That's why the south is in trouble. So Somaliland and Puntland and the others, which I will mention, they have devised their own bottom-up community-owned and community-driven approach, and that is why they succeeded for creating relative peace and stability. Galmudug and Humanitarian, they imitated, although they are smaller regions, they imitated the same, and they have achieved some progress. It was also indigenous solution. The South cannot be stable or peaceful as long as different external troops or policies, competing policies, pursuing their interests and their policies are there. So this must be taken into consideration. And Somali people have their problems, but the overarching problem is the external interventions. Ill-advised, ill-willed interventions are always there. And unless that ends, there will not be peace. The other thing I conclude is selection about the National Assembly. National Assembly, and in Garowe it was agreed that they will be selected 4.5 because there cannot be elections in Somaliland. This 4.5, although I hate, and it cannot be put aside until there are elections. Or I could have ever 5 points, then 4.5. And so we are forced to or compelled to use this clan selection until we get elections. But how can you select people from Shabab areas? Or will the assembly will be composed of Puntland and Galmudug? So we need this security problem to be resolved in the south. So that then after that, elections, representations, selections, governance will come after. So I think someone said it today earlier, we are repeating the insanity we have been doing in the last 20 years. I mean, we, international community and the Somalis, the insanity to repeat the same thing, same failed policies. Conference must come, the different, make a difference.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've got a lot of people been waiting very patiently. First the lady here, I'm coming to the gentleman there, the man in the corner, the two people there, in that order.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Human Jibril. I won't be giving any input into the consultation, but I would seek the Minister's assurances and commitment in two areas. You mentioned that one of the considerations which is going to be discussed at the conference is expanding the mandate and the size of AMISOM troops. As we all know, all parties to the conflict in Somalia have committed grave crimes and they've been left completely unaccountable. Now, the international organizations, including ourselves, have for a long time called for a commission of inquiry or a similar mechanism to be established, which is impartial and neutral and independent to look into these war crimes and come up with recommendations. So I would call on the Minister to put that forward in the conference. That is one aspect. I found it quite baffling that, we haven't addressed the issue of refugees or the humanitarian situation. We've been very stuck into the political discussions and the very large IDP community in Somalia who are suffering enormously. I would seek your assurances and commitment, particularly to remind regional countries that they have to abide by international humanitarian and refugee law, which includes no refoulement to Somalia. The conditions in South Central Somalia do not permit for refugees to be returned either into safe havens or elsewhere. And until the situation improves, we have to ensure that they are given the hospitality and kindness that they've received so far. With respect to IDPs, I mean, what is the strategy? We can't see anything that helps us understand what is going to happen to IDPs. There are, of course, many of them that can't be reached, but for those where security now permits in Mogadishu, for them to be assisted, there is a need to improve operations to them. So I would be interested to learn a bit more about that.
Okay. Thank you. Good points. Right, gentleman here in the middle here has been waiting right here. Been waiting a very long time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
They've also been waiting a long time. Yeah.
I would like to blame my fellow Somalians who are here. You're claiming, always blaming Kenyan, Ethiopian, all the problem is us. You cannot understand simple information. It's written there, British government consultation on Somalia. You're talking about Somaliland, Puntland, Kenya. What are you talking about? Let us talk about Somalia. Be focused. You're giving these people headache. We're talking about Somalia, not Somaliland, not Puntland. Forget about that. The other thing I would like to add
might be a diaspora view, but
for the British government is let us consider those people who are dying in Somalia. People are leaving their countries. They're in refugee camps. They're dying in Kenya. They're dying in Ethiopia. We are here. We got all the opportunities. We got the passport. We can vote. We can eat. We can sleep. Let us think about those people who are dying. That's the first thing. And I would like to urge from the ministers, the William Hague who left, and other British citizens, please do not divide Somalia. Let us have a Somalia. Europe are becoming in one country. You don't want to leave Scotland. Why you divide Somalia? I've never seen anybody talking about Somalia. You're talking about a small portion of your tribe. Forget about that. Think. People are coming. United States, how many states are there? You're talking about 18 provinces. Let us think about Somalia, please. And I would like to add, the United Kingdom, this will be history. Please do not divide Somalia. Let us have great Somalia, and then we will be in great Somalia.
Thank you very much.
That's what I would like to see. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Let us talk Somalia, not Somaliland, not Puntland. And the last thing Is it because Britain are coming to Somalia because we had a patrol? Or because we not Turkey are going there? Please make sure that you meet the Somali people. Not those people over here. Let us consult our elders. One of the colleagues said that we have to consider Al-Shabab. It's true, they are full force. We cannot ignore them. Yeah, because they are the ones who are causing the problem, not those ones. They will go today and sleep there. They got benefits, they're working. Forget, let us talk to the real people. The people who are fighting, the people who are dying in the camps. And I'm really sorry, and I do apologize. You think careful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. We're nearly there, actually, on time. Actually, I think we're going to get to everyone who wanted to speak. The two gentlemen have been waiting there patiently. I don't really mind which order we go in. It's the three, the lady, and the two gentlemen there will all speak. He has the microphone. He'll go first. You'll go second, madam.
Microphone.
Yeah. Men first. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Hamoud Gure. The first question is, there was a question saying, are the British committed? I think that question has been answered by Secretary William Hague by landing in Mogadishu and taking an ambassador with him. So we know the British are really committed. But does that mean, really, there is a change of attitude, perception, and policy towards Somalia, from counterterrorism into nation building? Is that the reading we can gather from that? Is that the reading that people can gather from the British initiative, really? If that is so, why the addition of Ethiopia and Kenya into Somali conflict? In that situation, you put in us a situation of catch-22. No matter how much we dislike Shabab, the Somalis dislike more an invading foreigner. Yes. So that situation is very, very serious. It is very serious. We are putting us in a situation catch-22, and we don't like that. So we need to know what is the timetable. I mean, AMISOM at the moment has been there for 4 years. How long will they going to stay? 4 years have lapsed since they arrived in Somalia. So how long are they going to stay? And what is the timetable for Kenya and Ethiopian forces also? Are they going in quickly and leaving out? Or are they going to stay and empower Shabab, as we are afraid? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The lady first and then the gentleman. Yep, thank you. We'll get to these answers at the end.
Thank you very much we have been ignored for a long time, so I'm very grateful. Your Excellency, we are deeply grateful to the British government for this consultation. As my colleague said, this is a consultation for us to tell the British government what we want to do. We should not be bogged down on details or grievances which will be dealt with later on. As the elder said, we cannot ignore the past, but we also need to unite the people, and we cannot do that if we are continuously saying grievances. We can take South Africa as an example. They have succeeded. There has been hideous crimes in the past, but they have succeeded because they have wise men and women who went on forward. I do want to hear from the British government that our borders will be secured, especially the south. There are rumors and suspicions about Kenya's intentions, and I do want to have a reassurance that our borders are protected, water, territorial water, and land. I want to add that in order to put Somalia back together, you will need a massive aid program, development program. We need this to be the aim. We don't want to be bogged down on details at the moment. The details can be worked out later. The Somali forces. I think the Somali forces will have to be trained properly. We will need like in the 1950s, forces trained in the developing world, the developed world, and you can't have former common criminals or as an army officer. You can't. You have to have proper army. We need training programs for the army, for the police, and for the civil servant. This is the task before you and before us. We will need scholarships. There has been a brain drainage in Somalia. The elders, the wise people, the people who brought Somalia to independence, they are not consulted. Please invite them. Now, lastly, Somalia is one nation, indivisible.
That's right.
No one can put, there are not two Somalis, they are one nation, one people. We want to be united. Please do not give any encouragement to secession. Thank you.
Okay. No. Well,
Al-Shabab. I think I agree with my colleagues. The engagement will be better because we know there are foreign forces there. They are Somalis. We have elders who can talk to them. Thank you.
Now, look, the gentleman here is going to make a statement, and after that, we're going to have literally just the last 2 or 3 minutes because I've got to give time to Tim Hitchens and Minister Bellingham to speak. So I'm going to get a couple more, but I'm only going with the people. There are some people who are putting their hands up now or in the last 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I won't get to you. Yep, please.
Awais Mahmoud.
You have waited, so
yes,
you have. I'm not going to rush you.
My comments will be limited to the internal issues, not to Ethiopia or Kenya or this.
Okay, as long as they're quick.
Yes. What it is the initiative of the British government is to be welcomed. We have seen, indeed, and heard from Secretary Haig and the passion and the energy with which he spoke. And I'm sure that all the diaspora share my sentiment that we are very grateful to the position of the British government on this. And we look forward to it making it a success. Now, the international conference in London and the agreement as to what will change or replace the TFG in August 2012, we understand there are representatives from Somalia, the TFG institutions, and 4 other groups. But in my view, we need to go beyond formal agreements by several politicians to create a consent-based institutions in Somalia. Consent and legitimacy are very important. Civil wars are about lack of legitimacy and the destruction of political institutions. I think, and I would just put it in a question form, is there a plan by the British government to follow up with this? Something called Grand Somali Peace Conference in Somalia itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got to stop you there. Thank you for those points.
That's right, yeah.
Let me, as I said, a couple of people who had their hands up early, and so I will get to them right now. But if I could ask you, please, literally, you don't have time to say more than one sentence. The one thing you're interested in, if you speak longer than that, I'll ask the microphone to be taken away. Sorry, the gentleman here was first at the front. No, people who've spoken once will only get once. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, my name is Abdul Shibril. Just what I want to say is, I think the diaspora is very important, what the William here say and the Minister of Africa. But what I was looking is, what was happening in Ugandan community, the same as the British government, they was opening an office in Defe. Because there is a human resource for the diaspora. But today I was coming from Sadak. We have an appointment for our two local councillors. And I was taking the information from here. But what I was deeply respected is the diaspora is very important, but they don't have any resource. We are requesting the British government to open an office in Defet, helping the Somali projects in here to Somalia, not to Kenya. That's what I was asking.
Thank you. You've made your point. Gentleman there with the red tie, and then I'm going to the lady with the exactly, and that'll be it. Thank you. No, right there, that gentleman there, the blue shirt. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I will be very brief here.
because a lot of issues has been covered.
Don't tell me you be brief, just be brief.
Yeah, brief. I think I want to express my support with the already aired views about the support of the British Initiative to hold such meeting. Maybe for the right time, but the right reason.
Good.
But still, there are some skepticism and cynicism, by some quarters about the clarity and the real versus behind this meeting.
Okay, that's your point.
I know that Secretary Haig and Minister Bellingham, they explained.
Yep.
But still, Somalis, they want to know, what is behind the scene.
Okay.
You see,
okay.
This is very
we'll get the Minister to answer that in a minute. The lady at the back, sorry, this is the last one I'm going to take. There, right there, yep. Thank you. Last point.
Hi, my name is Akbar Farah, and I'm a Somalilander,
right.
representing some of a female diaspora working over here. As we are contributing and working hard towards contributing to the British society and across all the levels of education, of health, and all sorts of employment, I am requesting from the British government to recognise our efforts, to recognise our input over here, but also back home. And I'm urging the British government and thank them heartily for organising this meeting, to use some of the excellent example that Somaliland has been showing the world, not just on a national level, but also international level. There have been some evidence-based examples that can be used and implemented, such as the peace, politician elections, and the help and the support being offered from nationally, but also internationally. And I would also got one more request to Minister David Cameron to ask him when is the time to organise a Somaliland conference based on our recognition and on the contribution.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think this point was raised earlier in one of the earlier sessions, and maybe examples within Somaliland that can be useful for Somalia. In any case, final comments here to Tim Hitchens and Minister Bellingham, and I apologise for those I couldn't get to, but we had a...
Well, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I'd like to thank all of you very much indeed for your contributions. I just want to pick up on some of the questions that have been asked just most recently. First of all, I think the point about the clan structure and the need to move away from a clan-based representation, I think that's incredibly important. But don't forget, when the whole Djibouti process started, you didn't have these areas of stability. Now I think you can move away from that and look much more at inclusivity, at a proper representation. I think on the point about piracy, that there must be a solution on the land. And one of the things I'm really quite excited about is we've got some ideas for reinforcing those communities that have chased out the pirates with development schemes, using the private sector, DFID money. So in other words, where a coastal community has been freed of pirates, then they will be rewarded by money for schools, for hospitals, medical centres, all of that sort of thing. And I also feel very strongly that the TFG must get a grip of the EEZ, that's the Exclusive Economic Zone, so they can actually charge fishing licenses, they can take control of issues like toxic dumping, and that they can also make sure that they liaise with international maritime forces to not just deal with piracy on the high seas, but take control of our own maritime waters. That is something that the TFG really could do, but it's constructive. I think on the point about, someone made some quite moving comments about the refugees and the humanitarian problems. I think it was you, Madam, at the back. This is all a symptom of the tragedies and the problems of the past. We would have liked to have spent, it could have been a 5-day conference in its own right to look at how we handled this. But I can assure you that DFID and the other donors, the other agencies are really focused on this, but we are picking up the problems of failure. The whole idea of this conference is to look to the future and to be more optimistic. And I just want to say something about, there is going to be a follow-up, I can assure you. It's not just a one-off, but there are going to be a number of work strands, there are going to be a number of specialist groups that will come out of the conference that will drive the agenda forward in some of these very, very important areas, these different strands. And I think that someone asked, has there been a change in attitude? Well, I think there's a change in emphasis. There's certainly a change in our allocation of resources in terms of aid and development. And I think that we're really determined to take a lead on this. When our Prime Minister decides that he wants to take a lead, then I can assure you he's a man of real commitment and real substance. And he is making this one of his priorities, and he's determined to help try and make a difference. And so I really do give you, my commitment. It's not just going to be a one-off event. There will be proper follow-up. And on the point about Somaliland, there's been a lot of talk today about Somaliland. My view is that, of course we can't park this somewhere else, but it is in a separate silo. And if the Somalilanders want to explain how well they've done, and they want to engage with neighbours to the south, now is the time to do it. And we are not judgmental in this, because we understand their aspirations, but we also understand the wishes of the rest of Somalia to remain an integral federal country. Just as I'm a unionist, I don't want Scotland to go independent. But my final point is that, and that leads me into this final point, please be as united as possible. Pull together for the sake of the people of Somalia, those people who are suffering, those people who have been dying. There are many evil, negative forces out there who are longing for us to fail, and we mustn't ever play into their hands. Let's prove them wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Bellingham. Thanks for those comments, especially right at the end. One of the emails that came in here just towards the end reminds us how serious this process is. It talks about the fact that there was apparently a suicide attack in Mogadishu this afternoon. At least I've just read this here, but we'll find out, I'm sure, more details later. And I think the scale of the importance, as you said, the timing is really because there is a confluence of internal factors, opportunities, many of them, and external factors which have really caught and captured the imagination of the international community. From a Chatham House perspective, we're delighted on behalf of our Africa programme to be able to host all of these members of the Somalia Diaspora here at Chatham House, to be able to host this conversation with the Foreign Secretary, with the Minister, with the head of the Africa desk at the Foreign Office. Thanks to Sally Healy, who's really been leading a lot of our work on the Horn of Africa here at Chatham House, along with Alex Vines and Trevor Cargill and everyone. But keep giving your input, and I think these comments that were made from the floor, as well as by Minister Bellingham, about being able to really be constructive in your answers, as many of you were in your contributions, it'll really help us help the situation to the best of our ability. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving so much of your time.